Hi, everybody. Ruechel here, talking with Dr. Michael Grego of the Pinellas County School District, the Superintendent of Pinellas County Schools. Hey, it's been a while since we talked,
It
right?
has. It's good to see you.
But we're here again. This is a political season, and there have been a lot of things that have been said about the school district, which may or may not be true. Not naming any candidates here, but I've heard some of these things. So I want to get a couple things straight for you. As far as the school district is concerned, there was that article that came out in the paper, and they called them failing schools, which a lot of people revolted against because they didn't like the characterization of being that. But bottom line, was there an audit? Has the school been cleared of any financial wrongdoing? Talk to me about that.
Well, after those, and I thank you because our schools that were termed failures, the parents do take objection to that because their kids are enrolled in those schools, and I can tell you those schools are doing remarkably well. But after that, there was both a state and federal. There was an audit team that came into our district. They spent about 3 to 4 months, and so they provided a thorough audit of all federal expenditures, basically, and the majority of it surrounded around Title I, which are funds derived from the federal government that go into schools with high rates of poverty. And after 3 or 4 months, they provided a report to us with no findings. And in fact, they really praised us for many of the great things that we're doing in our Title I schools that they reviewed. So we were happy about that, but we always take audits as an opportunity to learn. So what are some of the other best practices happening throughout the United States, and also a way of saying that, or validating that some of the things that we're doing are really right on. So there were no inappropriate use of fundings. All of the things that maybe were out there, as you said, in a political season that might be great sound bites, and those are the things that we need to just continue to move on and continue to work day by day to provide the resources for our children, no matter where they live, no matter what their zip code.
On another matter, there were a couple of lawsuits that were filed. One of them was called Bradley years ago that was settled, and the last time I knew that there was you're still in mediation, is that the right word for it, with those groups that say that the school district still isn't doing enough?
It's called dispute resolution, where we're meeting with them. We were meeting with them on a weekly basis, and we're developing what's called the Bridging the Achievement Gap. And where that plan is being finalized, we're out into the community, getting community input and beyond the school and principal and teachers that we've gotten. Now we're running a series of community meetings. In fact, one is this evening at Gibbs, and we had one at Largo High School. We had one in Boca Ciega, and we'll also be going into a few churches and some Martin Luther King Center, Tarpon Springs in a few weeks too. So this is about bridging the achievement gap with our minority students district-wide. And I want to really emphasize that. It's about each and every student, our Hispanic students, our African American students, where if they're not achieving at the rate or the level they should be, how could we help and assist that? If we're going to be, and we are going to be, one of the top performing school districts in the state and nation, we need to bring all of our students along with us.
And you know I'm not shy about asking these questions, and you're not shy about answering them, which I really appreciate, but I think we have an obligation to our audience to ask these questions. A couple of the attorneys that are involved in the case gave the impression, I'll leave it that way, not quoting them, that there was a lot of discourse, not a lot of happiness between the two groups. How would you characterize that? And you know, I know you're really honest with me, but have there been some bumps along the road?
You know, one of the things that I've learned in the last 4 years is that there's been such a long history here in Pinellas County, and some of that history has provided a distrust of neighborhoods and communities. Our job is to work together and to try to build that trust up. And so we need to continue to be patient with our community members, with some of the leaders in the African American
who would like to see things change.
Who want to see. And so we're after the same goal. And the fact of the matter is that perhaps over time, over decades, and this goes back 20, 30 years, the sense that things were promised, the sense that things were talked about but not done, if that's real to them, then it's real to me, and it's real to our board. So what we're trying to do is to put down on paper and to really institutionalize that, perhaps even work towards creating a level of a policy in our district that this needs to be an emphasis. after we're gone, that the achievement gap in Pinellas County, as it is closing, will continue to narrow, and our goal is to be the first district in the United States to eliminate it.
Yeah.
But then the important thing is to keep it there, and so that's our goal. And so their attorneys may characterize those things as hostile or a little bit uneasy. I characterize it as this is hard work.
Sure.
Hasn't been done anywhere in the United States, and we have a desire to be the first district to really accomplish this. And so to think it's going to be easy or smooth sailing is foolish. We need to work together. We need to begin to truly trying to trust one another and understanding that with the end in mind, we have the same goals.
Right, and you know what you mentioned, because I've been doing this program since 1988, I believe, so I've watched how this has gone, and you're right about now getting something down on paper that has a lasting impression, because when we had a lot of changes with superintendents and stuff, there were a lot of things that didn't get put down on paper and were taken for granted, and,
right.
and on and on and on. Well, that's good to know. Last thing on this, so how are the 5 schools that were having problems in the southern part of the county doing?
Well, you know, ironically, yesterday we had a debriefing by Dr. Bird. I know you've talked with him on this show, and I was very pleased with the growth. We are doing biweekly assessments with students in both mathematics and English language arts, and our teachers, and I see tremendous growth in those schools. You know, we bank all of this stuff with growth on one test, and that's another discussion with our Florida Standards assessment. Sure, yeah. One test, one day type of thing. But we're seeing tremendous growth. The schools are extremely orderly. Our referrals, suspensions are way down, over 40% in those schools. Our achievement levels are going in the right direction. I'm very proud of the leadership. This is hard work, but we're making progress. We have to stay the course. And I'm also very proud, as we're pushing to build a new Melrose Elementary School, the impact that it will have economically into that community, as we will be promoting the opportunities for a lot of local and minority-owned businesses to participate in that. And so here's a 18, 20, 23 million, I don't know the final price of it, schools that will have an economic impact into that community, and we're going to try to the greatest degree possible to really employ local contractors for that.
And is that a rehab, or is that a completely tear down?
That's a completely new school for Melrose.
Well,
so that school is as new and modern as Campbell Park and Fairmont Park as it deserves. That community deserves that school.
Great. All right. As I'm looking at the notes that you've given me, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, the application period for next year is already coming up. Tell me about these open house nights, et cetera, that you guys are having.
Well, we have 2 things. We have an information fair that, and first of all, let me say and mention that if any questions, we publicize this so much on our website. I continue to encourage people to just simply go to our web page, PinellasCountySchools.org, and you'll see all of the information, the dates. But basically, we fold this into 2 things. We have 2 large fairs where if a parent wants to come in, we have one at Gibbs and one at Pinellas Park in the mall there. And parents want to come in and just browse through all of the choices and options throughout middle school and high school. They can do that in one swoop. You don't have to go to school by school. Then if they're interested in a particular school, let's say they're interested in Pinellas Park High School with the First Responders Program, or Gibbs High School with the Performing Arts Program, then they can go into an information night or discovery night where they can go specific to that school and really dive into the depths.
Now this affects primarily, well, I guess a lot of students, because you have elementary schools that have choices as well, but is it primarily that when people think about it, it's, hey, if you're in 5th grade, you need to start thinking about what's going to happen next year.
Absolutely.
And I know my grandson is 5th going into 6th, and we're kind of like, what now? And then the other would be with the high school once they get into 9th grade, right?
It is. A lot of the transition years is the big years, certainly the more popular years to transfer. But let me also emphasize, Al, that our schools that are not perhaps part of a district application program are growing their own curriculum. And I keep saying that a choice to stay in your locally zoned school because you really love and like that school is a great choice. Absolutely. And it is a choice in itself. And I challenge a lot of our parents to take a look at some of the programs, some of the STEM academies, and some of the specialized programs that are being developed in their whole local school, and get to know those programs as well. Yeah.
Okay. You've reached an agreement with the unions. In a nutshell,
we have.
What is it, without getting too specific?
Well, we have 4 unions that we deal with, obviously, and those are the Pinellas Classroom Teachers Association, PESPA, and SEIU, and then the police. We have a small police department here that, as you know. So we deal with all of them, and we were able to, this past board meeting, agree to, and the board members approved about a 3.85% increase, and this deals with our board picking up any and all increases of health care. So our health care stays the same, which is unbelievable in this time and date with health care. And our board also contributed to a slight increase across the board. I say slight, it adds up when you talk about all of the employees, about $1 million for the Florida retirement system. So that has to be added to that. And so it's a 2.3% actual financial increase in salary, plus the increase in the FRS, Florida retirement system, plus the increase in the what am I thinking about? The benefits. Excuse me.
Now, is that retroactive July 1, or is this for next year?
It is. It's retroactive for July 1, and the checks are going to be issued right around Thanksgiving, and so I'm glad to see that we have it before the holidays.
Let's talk about, we have so many great things here to talk about that the schools are all doing, but I want to mention a couple things. Anti-bullying production and fashion event. Bullying is, it's a big deal. Stuff that went on when I was a kid, when you were a kid, was probably bullying, didn't identify that, but it just seems like it's gotten out of control. So I know that the school district is spending an awful lot of time dealing with bullying.
We do, and one of the good and the bad is that we recognize, and the state recognized November as a national, the United States does, National Anti-Bullying. The downside of that is every day should be anti-bullying.
Absolutely, yeah.
But it certainly brings great attention to it. So we had a production over at Gibbs with a number of schools participating, and it really is very popular. And we partnered with the Department of Juvenile Justice and many other agencies. This has to be a daily conversation.
Yeah, it does.
It really does. And the part that we're dealing with more and more is not necessarily the actions that are taking place during school, Al, but it's the social media aspects. And so for that, we need our continued oversight with parents and others after school, where they're still communicating. It used to be when we went to school, is I'll see you at school, but then once we left school, our communications shut off.
Yeah,
now it goes on and on.
And we got another event. So when did we start the Great American Teach-In? Because I've done it every year, but I don't remember how many years we've been doing this. I think it's like 18 or 19. It's been a long time.
It's been a long time. I think it started in the 80s, but I don't know. I will check that.
Well, but the event's coming up again, and you've got thousands of people that have volunteered. And
November 16th.
Yeah, we take over for one day. I love the Great American Teach-In, but after I get done with my usually 2 sessions of kids, because they're usually younger kids and stuff, it's like, I'm exhausted. If I was a teacher, I'd have 5 more periods to go. Why is this such a great event?
Well, it's such a great event because it brings the community into our schools, and for the one day it opens up our schools, and people, as you mentioned, that come in, especially in high school, they'll say, okay, I'll teach 5 class periods, and by the end of 5 class periods, they say, I'm done, I'm going. But more than that, it gives an appreciation of the connection of the jobs and,
That's right,
and the people, the students are interested in it. Because, let's face it, you've been in school, we've all been in school, we have a guest speaker, it's always a little bit more exciting. It depends on who they are, but to listen to people, we have doctors, we have attorneys, we have firefighters, we have police officers coming in, we have Al Ruechel come in, and that would be a tremendous treat for people. If they're in a journalism program, they would love to listen to you. Yeah. So you get all these folks coming in. It opens our doors to see that public education is alive and well. These students are great students, it's a great benefit for both.
Yeah, and they always have such great questions. I won't repeat what some of those questions are because they're absolutely hilarious. Dr. Grego, thank you for your time. We'll be speaking to you very soon. And we're going to take a short break and be back with more after this.